So I'm having so much fun right now. So far I've had 2 rides today. The first one was this wonderful, sweet lady on her way to work. She works with deaf children. She both teaches them and helps coordinate their services and the things that they need in school. And these are kids that are lower income, and so they have a lot of needs that aren't being filled. And we had this wonderful conversation about how Florida isn't really doing a great job with children with disabilities, and it was such a wonderful conversation. She had such a pure heart. She gave me a banana and sent me on my way. And then my second ride was this wonderful truck driver from Cuba, and we talked about his family. He lives on a farm. We talked about Cuba. He gave me advice on learning Spanish. He was such a nice guy. We talked about places to go in Miami. I had so much fun in the truck with him that I didn't want it to end. I'm having such a blast talking to people, and I think this is something that I didn't really understand. Like, I've heard it, but I didn't really understand it. But when you are hitchhiking, you are getting to talk to people in their own element. And people talk to me anyway. So people just tell me all these things about themselves, and I'm learning so much about just people in general. People are good, people are interesting, people have so much to say that they're not necessarily going to talk to their friends or family, but because they're never going to see me again, they open up. And so yeah, that's how it's going so far. I'm looking for my next ride today. So, my last ride was so nice to me, and he found the perfect location for me to find a new ride, but it was on the interstate. So I just got driven off the interstate by the nicest sheriff ever. Oh my God. So many stories. When he pulled me over, I just thought it was so funny and so hysterical that, like, I couldn't even, like, have, like, any amount of, like, being appalled or upset or anything. I was just laughing, and he took my license and he ran it. He's like, okay, you just can't be on the interstate. And he drove me to, like, the nearest, like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a 7-Eleven, but bigger. It's like a travel, like, 7-Eleven. And yeah, he was really nice about it. It was kind of funny. I guess I've been christened. I've had two rides that I got using my actual thumb, and I had a police officer pull me off the highway. So I'm officially a hitchhiker. I'm currently at the Miami hostel, but I wanted to give you an update on how I ended up getting here and what my last couple rides were like. So I left you when I was sitting in front of that, like, racetrack, like 7-Eleven thing, and I was waiting out there for several hours. I sent a couple Craigslist requests via the Craigslist rideshare. One person responded. I really would have loved to have ride with him because it would have been on a motorcycle, and he was like old school biker, reminded me of my brother. Total handful and just awesome. But I couldn't because my hair is too big for motorcycle helmets, and even though you don't need a motorcycle helmet in Florida, I've been down on a bike twice, and so I don't ride without a helmet, and I passed that up. Eventually I was like, okay, I'm not getting any luck online, so I went across the street to another store, and I started looking for a piece of cardboard because I know that a lot of hitchhikers will write like a sign, and I managed to buy a marker, and I looked for cardboard, couldn't find any, and a really nice man came up to me, and he was like, he was like, you know, different, and he helped me find some cardboard, and I wrote my sign, and literally the minute I wrote my sign, I stood up and I started to walk out of the gas station, and someone spotted my sign and pulled over. And it was a really nice, younger black man. He'd never picked up a hitchhiker before. He's like, look, I wasn't sure what you were doing. I've never seen a black person hitchhike before, and so I wanted to pick you up. And we sat and talked in his car for a really long time. He, you know, he's one of those people that's always done the right thing, always worked really hard. And as we were driving to his town, it was a really interesting conversation because his town is a very uppity, very white neighborhood, and very uncomfortable. And he's one of these people that, you know, has always done the right thing, has never really done anything adventurous. And so we talked about what it was like to have a passion for something, things he liked doing, what his life was like. It was just a really good conversation. It was the first black person I'd had pick me up. And then after that, an older gentleman picked me up. And when I got in his car, I knew it was going to be a handful because back in the day I was a stripper and I can spot those like a mile away. So I thought I was sitting in his car. It was only going to be a couple exits, and it was going to put me in a much better position to find a new hitchhiking situation. And honestly, he was so old and frail, I could take him, so I wasn't too worried. So I got in the car and I put my flute between me and him, and my flute ended up being a great thing. It's like, no, I didn't beat him with my flute, but you know, it was very much like wax on, wax off Miyagi style, like in order to get to the next stop. And he was just a sweet old man, and he was telling me about his wife and how she, you know, has medicine, and you know, and the things that the medicine had affected their relationship. And while it was a hectic ride, it was only a few stops. I'm glad I had it because it was an interesting conversation, and I'm sure it's going to end up in a story somewhere. And then my last ride, because I was in a much better situation as far as being visible, you know, I was on a much bigger thoroughfare. Everyone going in that direction was pretty much going to Miami. I put out my sign, and maybe 2 hours later, somebody picked me up. He was a really young kid, again, a black kid who'd never picked up a hitchhiker before. And he was a DJ from New York, and he was down in Florida with his mom and his sister, and he's just itching to get out of that town. And it was wonderful. He was visiting his girlfriend, and he drove me all the way into Miami, and he was so sweet because he didn't want to just leave me on the side somewhere. So he drove all over the place trying to find a good spot to leave me that would be close enough to like public transit and stuff so I can get to South Beach. Of course, he totally ended up dropping me off out of the way, but the point is, he was so sweet. And he was such a good boy, you know. He was from South Africa, and his parents came over here as immigrants, and he, again, trying to always do the right thing, but he had this passion for art. And we talked about how that struggle was for him as far as, you know, wanting to be a DJ and wanting to be in the military, and his family wanting him to go to college and be like a doctor or a lawyer or something. And it was fascinating, and I really enjoyed it. So how do I feel about hitchhiking? I love hitchhiking. I didn't think I would. I think I have a definite privilege as a girl, and I think I have a privilege as a black female because, A, when people see a girl on the side of the road with a sign, they feel a little protective, and they don't like seeing you out there. And also it's a curiosity thing because they don't see many girls by themselves out there hitchhiking. And the same thing with being a black female. I've never seen a black hitchhiker, like, ever. I knew gutter punks that were black, but I never saw them hitchhike. And I think that little bit of startle factor of, whoa, there's a black girl hitchhiking, helped me get rides easier, and it helped me get rides from people that were nicer. Like, I got rides from just genuinely nice people who were really, really, you know, going out of their way to help somebody get to where they were going and curious about my story. You know, they see somebody out there that's not the norm, that's not what they expect to see from a hitchhiker. And instead of saying, oh, that's a hitchhiker, or, oh, they look dangerous, they're like, oh, that's curious. Let me pull over and see what's going on. And then they pull over and they talk to me for a few seconds, and they let me in their car because they want to hear my story. And it's great because it's such an exchange. When you're hitchhiking, like I said before, you're in their space, and so they open up in a way that is really, really beautiful and amazing, and it's taught me a lot about people. What do I think about hitchhiking going forward? It's something I'm definitely going to do. Again, I'm going to be going up to Pensacola to visit someone that edited a couple of my short stories, really cool, and so I'm going to go up there and just hardcore writing time for a week with him. And then after that, I'm going to hitchhike up to North Carolina and go camping with an old friend of mine, and then I'm going to hitchhike back to New Orleans. And I'm choosing to do that rather than take Greyhound. Yeah, I could pay for a Greyhound bus, but I have no problem doing that. It's not like a financial thing, but I'm doing it because I can see how this experience is opening my eyes to things that are going to be useful to me as a writer. And it's just pure adventure, and I crave that anyway. Like, even though I'm a hermit, even though I'm perfectly happy never talking to anybody, I crave adventure, and I recognize that being a hermit isn't always the best thing for me. And so a lot of times I will deliberately put myself in situations where I am forced to talk to people. And hitchhiking is like the ultimate of that situation. You cannot hitchhike and not talk to people, even if you don't want to. It's impossible. And to be able to have that exchange of ideas with just random people and just hear and understand more and more about people and about America and about what's going on in people's subconscious, what they think, what their families are like, what their jobs are like, what their struggles are like, what their passions are like. It's all gold as a writer as far as I'm concerned. so that is my update on how I got to Miami. I will be uploading a review of one of the hostels I stayed at. I should have done a review of the other one because it was a hoot, but I didn't think about it. I was so tired, it just totally spaced my mind. But you will get a review of the Miami hostel. On that note, ciao.